I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've actually recorded stuff. I've been busy as hell. Forgive me, this new job, and then me just doing a lot of other shit, getting ready for this project, and then DJing and stuff like that too. So, this video I had planned to do months ago, but with a lot of the crap that was happening in my life, I decided to put it off. Plus, I wanted to just review it. So, this is gonna be my personal 50 game-changing albums. Now, I just want to be a disclaimer. This is not my favorite albums list. I'm gonna be real with you. Now, some of these albums, which are my favorites, I want to appear on this list. Stay tuned on that. Give me one second. I gotta make sure I'm good. Make sure on that. But at the same time, the reason why I want to do a game change, because certain albums I feel like kind of had an influence. When I mean game changing in this list, I mean certain albums that had an influence on my life, on my love for music, and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? So this is gonna be a 5-part series. So each part is gonna be like 10 episodes or whatnot too. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. So the first album that we are gonna do is gonna be Stevie Wonder's Fulfilling His First Finale. This album was actually his 17th studio album that came out on Motown Records. This was kind of released during like the mid to late classic period, which honestly the public is gonna say Talking Book up to Songs in the Key of Life. Me personally, what I call Stevie's classic period, I would say Music on My Mind all the way up to Hotter Than July. Even though he still drops some very dope music right after that album anyway and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to Stevie Wonder, his albums, this is the album I've always had a very interesting relationship with. You know what I'm saying? Because I've always loved this album, but a lot of and it's funny because it's like this album was so influential that even won Album of the Year in the Grammys in 1974, 75, one of them years. And you know what I'm saying? It has some of his most iconic songs. But I don't know, I always felt like this album kind of gets a little slept on compared to the Innervisions and the Songs in the Key of Life, which again, all great albums and stuff like that too, but I feel like a lot of that has to do with like the subject matter, because he was pretty much working on this album right after his car accident and everything like that too, which is funny because he actually had the car accident in North Carolina, like close to an hour from where I stay at, which is crazy. And anyway, but yeah, man, because he was enjoying his creative freedom, and while Innervisions was more like political with a lot of its subject matter and everything like that too, Fulfilling This was more introspective, like talking about like spirituality and just questioning life and everything like that too, like more personal. Songs like fucking It Ain't No Use, which I feel like is a very beautiful song. You know what I'm saying? Fucking Heaven Is 10 Zillion Light Years Away. I love the synth on that song. You know what I'm saying? Please Don't Go. They Won't Go When I Go. The George Michael cover of that track, fire. I think that was from the second Listen Without Prejudice album. But you still had some of the Stevie Wonder in the past, like the song You Haven't Done Nothing, which he did that with the Jackson 5, talking about fucking Nixon. Because this was the height of the whole Watergate scandal and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? What else? Boogie on Reggae Woman, which I feel like could have definitely been placed upon albums like Innervisions and maybe even Talking Book and stuff like that too. And it's funny because this was actually the last album he did with Robert McAuliffe and Malcolm Cecil, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Which those guys were definitely instrumental with Stevie's use of the synthesizer and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because even with Stevie's classic period album, Like Rolling Stone, they did not put this album on that list, which is crazy. But I definitely feel like this is an album where Stevie really let people inside what he was going through at that time, like that post car accident and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Which definitely broke down barriers for works like Songs in the Key of Life, Journey Through the Secret Lives of Plants, Hotter Than July, and so on and so on. So that's my number one right there. So number two, we got the late great Isaac Hayes with Hot Buttered Soul. This album was actually his second studio album that came out in 1969. Now this album right here is pretty much what I call the true introduction into the second wave of soul music. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is like this album pretty much broke down barriers, because you know when it comes to 60s soul, yeah, you had albums like, you know, Etta James, At Last, you know, The Impressions, you know, the Mod People album from 67. But this was the album that really redefined the album format when it came to soul music and stuff like that. I feel like Otis Redding was the first, especially when it came to albums like Otis Blue. But Isaac Hayes with Hot Buttered Soul was, let's just keep it a buck, he pretty much kept the lights on at Stax Records. Because this album came out 2 years after Otis Redding tragically got killed in that plane crash. Him, alongside some of the original members of the Bar-Kays. You know what I'm saying? And Stax Records, I think what they did like a campaign when they were going to drop some music every week. And Isaac Hayes, Hot Buttered Soul, because you know his first album was called Presenting Isaac Hayes, which it was good. It wasn't great. I mean, it didn't really go well commercially. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like honestly, it didn't go that well commercially because of the fact that, of course, you know what I'm saying, Otis Redding passed away and everything like that. So, you know what I'm saying. Now, but back to Isaac Hayes, man. This album only had like 4 songs in that shit. And know him and songwriter David Porter, man, you know, who was also an instrumental figure when it came to Isaac Hayes' sound. You know what I'm saying? Because they both wrote a lot of the great hits from Stax Records, most notably fucking Soul Man from Sam and Dave. And this album definitely took you through heartbreak and black pride, reinvention, and everything like that too. And you know, just like Bob Dylan, you know, Isaac Hayes really broke that 2-3 minute mold when it came to soul music, because a lot of these songs kind of range from like 8 minutes to like 12 to 17 minutes and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Prime example, that first track, Walk On By, they took a Dionne Warwick song. Like if you hear a Dionne Warwick track, Walk On By, ba ba ba, it's a very poppy, soulful kind of groove to it. Now Isaac, it was just like he took that sweet song and just took it to the gutter and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And it was the grit to it all that really, really transcended that sound and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? And I can't even talk about this album without talking about my personal favorite track, By the Time I Get to Phoenix. Now keep in mind, out of the 4 songs, there was really like I think there was like really like 2 covers and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me. There was really like 2 covers of the songs and shit. You know, and By the Time I Get to Phoenix, that was a song by Glenn Campbell. Again, a soft country song and stuff like that too. I fucking love that version. But again, what made Isaac's version stand out was the monologue, which is known to like the more audience as rap. And when I talk about rap in this case, I'm talking about the spoken word element and everything. And without Isaac Hayes doing that, we want to have artists like Bobby Womack, Millie Jackson, who ironically did an album with Isaac Hayes in the mid '70s. You know what I'm saying? You know, just talking. And mind you, Isaac was talking for like 9, 10 minutes to set the whole pace to the song and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? And I can't really talk about this album without even talking about the album artwork, like the bald head. You know, because you know at that time everybody was trying to go afros, had a clean cut look. Where Isaac had like that bald look and stuff like that too, and it was definitely very groundbreaking at that time because the labels they didn't want that shit. You know what I'm saying? But and I know when it comes to Isaac Hayes, he gets celebrated more for the Shaft, like the blaxploitation soundtracks, which I love. I love Shaft, but to me, those early Isaac Hayes albums like Hot Buttered Soul, the Isaac Hayes Movement, Black Moses, I mean, fucking fire. And this is the album that pretty much set the whole pace for it. So yeah, this is fucking Isaac Hayes, Hot Buttered Soul. So number 3, we got Rick James with his first album, Come Get It. Now, if Isaac Hayes is probably responsible for reshaping soul music for the 70s during the late 60s, it's pretty controversial and safe to say that Rick James pretty much did that for the late 70s, featuring R&B in the 80s, if that makes sense. But at the same time too, and here's the thing, Rick James had a very interesting position because you gotta remember Motown, quote unquote, was, people like to override how Motown was not doing so well in the late 70s, which I kind of feel it gets over exaggerated to say the least. Like, yeah, you had soul labels like Philadelphia International and of course, you know, Atlantic and stuff like that doing their thing, but let's not act like they didn't have like Songs in the Key of Life. The Commodores, self-titled, like the Commodores, they were keeping Motown's lights on. Marvin was still doing his thing and shit. But you know, by 1978, Rick James came out with this album, Come Get It. And this was really just Motown's way of saying, yeah, we're funky, because at that time, the label's premier funk act, the Commodores, they were kind of crossing over more to the R&B market. Like, yeah, they were still funky, but you know, with songs like Easy and 3 Times a Lady, which I love those songs, you know what I'm saying, they were getting into a new commercial fan base and stuff like that too. So, and you know, funk music at that time, you had acts like Parliament and Funkadelic, Cameo, you know, doing their thing. And here comes Rick James, who pretty much, you know, bought his own kind of share of funk and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? Which kind of rejuvenated Motown into a more contemporary view when it came to like viability. And when it came to Rick James and stuff like that too, you gotta remember, it's like he still carried on that funky tradition, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, of course, him being influenced by the late great Sly Stone, you know what I'm saying, he definitely brought that mark into Motown and shit. Like, every time I hear You and I, that dun 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 do 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 do, like the arrangement itself was just so slick and smooth, but yet when the bass and the drums kick in, it just so in your face and so New York. And forget You and I, the intro. Can we talk about the Stone City Band high? That dun 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 dun. I mean, fucking crazy. Him and his Stone City Band, like, they just did a lot of dope content. You know what I'm saying? My personal favorite songs like Hollywood, so fucking moody and grimy. Like, and that's the thing. Rick singing often gets overlooked at times, you know. And of course, Mary Jane, hey, I love you just the same. Like, you know. And like I said, that was a kind of song that you can definitely hear Bootsy Collins do, or some shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the fact that the Motown heads did not really know what Mary J was until it actually became a popular hit was just mind blowing and all itself. You know, he created that whole punk funk sound and everything like that too. It wasn't even just the funkiness of the tracks. It was the it was pretty much like the raw sex appeal that he laid on and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's my number three. Rick James, Come Get It. Moving on to number four, we got the first hip hop placement on this list. And honestly, what better way to start off the hip hop placements than this album right here, Illmatic, Nas. You know what I'm saying? Arguably one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time and everything. The debut hip hop album, the one that people look to as the gold standard when it comes to hip hop and everything like that too. I mean, yeah, I mean, this album right here, fucking classic. It is definitely one of the most, not just hip hop, one of the most iconic albums of all time. And what I love most about albums like Illmatic and Reasonable Doubt, which, believe me, that's coming. I'm just gonna spoil that right now. Like, Nas spoke that black excellence. He spoke that, like, he proclaimed that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's crazy because, you know, Illmatic, whether people want to look at it or not, it's pretty a dark album. You know, just talking about, you know, growing up in Queensbridge and everything like that too. You know, just the first track, the Genesis, which pretty much set the whole tone of the album. You know, with the samples from like the Wild Style movie, which iconic hip hop movie by the way. And then we get into New York State of Mind, which one of the most iconic hip hop songs ever. I remember as a kid I heard that shit and it just blew me away. It really just blew me away, like the lyrical intelligence and the swagger he had on that track and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, that song captured his environment at that time. You know what I'm saying? But even with songs like "The World Is Yours," which that's actually the first song I've heard from that album. But the Q-Tip remix, whoo, the Q-Tip remix, that was something else, and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of producers, can we talk about the production lineup for this album? Like, you had a lot of these cats that was pretty much at their prime at that time. You had the fucking melodic yet abstractual experimentation of Q-Tip. You had the inner city in-house style LES. You had, of course, Large Professor, who was a true originator of Nas' sound. You got the soulfulness of Pete Rock. And last, and especially not least, we got DJ Premier, who production-wise was probably the MVP of this whole album. And I feel, honestly, his style when it came to production really transcended with Nas, from like New York State of Mind to fucking Memory Lane. And of course, you know, Represent and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, Illmatic was like one of those albums I feel like it will definitely be studied for years and years to come and everything like that too. Now the question is really like, is this really his best album? I definitely feel it's like, here's the thing. Lyrically, this is definitely his best album. But conceptually, it was written, is in my opinion, conceptually neck to neck. And I was so close to putting It Was Written on this. I was like, ooh, let me put It Was Written, but I love It Was Written, but I resonated more with Illmatic and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So that's number 4. Illmatic, Nas. So my number 5 pick is actually an album that definitely I have a funny story. I have a story with this album, Operation Doomsday by MF Doom. I remember I was in high school, and I used to have this homeboy I used to fuck with named Joshua, man. Shout out to Josh, by the way, wherever you're at, man. He was like one of those hipster kind of guys, and he actually introduced me to MF Doom because I ain't gonna hold you. When I was a kid growing up, I saw MF Doom. My biggest memory of him was really just the Adult Swim bumpers and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? And so my friend was like, "Oh, and of course the Boondocks, of course." But my friend was like, "No, you have to listen to Madvillainy." I heard Madvillainy. I heard that when I was doing my homework that night. After I heard it the first time, I heard it four more times right after that. And all I can talk about, I was like, "Yo, this Madvillainy album was fire. Like, where the fuck was this at my whole life?" Then he said, "If you love that album, you have to listen to Operation Doomsday." So I heard Operation Doomsday, heard the album, and I was expecting some of the more griminess of Madvillainy, but with this album, it was just like a very, you saw like the, how can I put this? It was the lo-fi-ness that really made me appreciate this album and everything like that too. Like the way how Doom, the way how Doom flipped a lot of those samples, but the song that really blew me away was a song called "Hey," and it blew me away because it sampled Scooby Doo and shit like that. And as a producer, you know, when I like to sample obscure shit, and the way how he flipped that Scooby Doo sample, I'm not gonna tell you which Scooby Doo song it was. Y'all have to look it up, but it was just something unique, and it definitely made me realize why he was that heralded. And just the abstractual lyricism, like the way how I can describe MF Doom's lyricism, you take the abstractionness of Q-Tip, mix that with the vocal tone of Paris Smith from EPMD, and that's what you got. You know what I'm saying? And this album really made me want to actually get into producing and stuff like that too. Like it had like a very bedroom producer kind of feel to it. And it's funny too because as pretty much upbeat as this album was with a lot of its songs, the tragic backstory of MF Doom, or how he came to this album, is still one of hip hop's greatest come up stories. Because you gotta remember, MF Doom was originally like fucking in a group, Zev Love X and KMD, with his brother Sub Rock. Rest in peace to both MF Doom and Sub Rock. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of personally feel when it came to when they dropped, well, when Elektra shelved the Black Bastards album, that production sound of Black Bastards was like the precursor to this album. And the fact that I said Zoom, oh my god, Zev Love X transformed to MF Doom, arguably hip hop's anti-hero, is pretty like crazy and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? Cause KMD, one of the most underrated hip hop duos of all time. Just gonna keep it a buck. I'm just really gonna keep it a buck. And the creativeness of MF Doom's Operation Doomsday was what really, I've even heard people say this was like the underground version of Illmatic. Like that's how his album was. Like songs like Doomsday, you know, I love that Sade sample that they flipped. Red and Gold, oh my god. Da 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 da, bum 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 bum. Oh my Lord, have mercy, Lord have mercy on my soul. That might be one of the most illest ways they flipped that Dio sample I've heard, and that's actually what got me in. Like, and one thing about hip hop, people want to say, "Oh, sampling is bullshit." Sampling introduces motherfuckers to a lot of artists and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like the Dio and stuff like that too. I don't want to do a lot of sample snitching, but you know, if you love, I don't want to say if you love 80s R&B, this is gonna be the perfect album for you. and everything like that too. So yeah, man, Operation Doomsday, classic. Next album. Now this might be to many people a surprise. And like I said, I'm not just gonna go for the known classics. Some of these albums right here, I'm definitely going to go over the heads with this one. And this is actually the 8th album from one of my all-time favorite soul and R&B artists of all time, Teena Marie, Naked to the World. Now, with this album and stuff like that, this album came out during another time when Teena Marie was kind of at a crossroads and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? 2 years prior, she had dropped the Emerald City album, which that album was kind of like a very, it was a good album. Like, I personally, I love the album, but a lot of her diehard fans was taken aback because she kind of went for that more, like rock, but still mixed with, to me, it's like a rock album, but you still had glimpses of like Minneapolis sound and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So when she came out with this album, this was like her return to the roots and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, with Teena Marie, when it came to Naked to the World, this was really the album that sustained her legacy, in my personal opinion. Because I always say her albums from 78 up until, well, she never really had a bad album, but where I feel like she was in her zone, I would say 78 up until 83, 84. Hold on. Ooh. You know, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna say 79 to 90 for now. That's what I'm gonna say, because I gotta come back to that. She was definitely in her prime and everything. Some albums like Lady T, to Irons in the Fire, Robbery, which is my second favorite album from her. But I personally feel when she came out with the Star Child album from '84, which ironically, that's actually her best-selling album to date. You know what I'm saying? That was actually the beginning of the experimentation and shit like that too. And mind you, that was the album that really got her more commercial love, actually outside of the R&B market. So when she came out with this album, she definitely sustained that late '80s soul music and stuff like that too, which not really New Jack Swing, but more contemporary R&B. I'm just gonna say that, like songs like Ooh La La La, which I personally feel might be, again, one of the most illest songs she's ever came out with, which a lot of y'all know that was sampled for the Fugees and shit like that too, you know what I'm saying? And that's actually her only #1 song on the R&B chart too, which I was actually surprised about. But then my favorite song, Work It, ooh, classic joint right there. Dun 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 dun. Like, the sound, like I said, the production was definitely more urban and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Trick Bag was dope, and then you had, again, her mentor Rick James coming in, which we just talked about with the Once in the Future Dream and everything like that too. Yeah, man, like I said, this album right here definitely deserves its love and stuff. I feel like this album does not get its just due because, you know, when it comes to Teena Marie, I personally feel like people love her late 70s, early 80s shit. But sometimes when it came to like some albums that she came out with after Motown, a lot of it kind of gets a little slept on in my opinion. But yeah, man, this album right here, Naked to the World, fucking fire. Love it. Now, #7, we got the legendary, the late great Big Punisher, with fucking Capital Punishment. This album came out 1998, pretty much April 28th and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? Which this actually, unfortunately, was the only album he came out with when he was alive. Solo album. I'm not gonna count the Terror Squad album, of course. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, this album to me, one of my first hip hop albums I've ever had in my collection, and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like Big Pun was such a giant when it came, no pun intended, when it came to hip hop. Like nobody was rapping like him. Like you can tell he studied from like the Cool G rap class of anything and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know what's crazy? This album has like 24 tracks, and dare I say, there's not a weak track on this album. Like, I kid you not. From the beginning, from the griminess of Beware to the fucking commercialism of Still Not a Player to the mafioso of fucking Glamour Life, and then ending it off with Parental Discretion and everything like that. I mean, this whole album is just fire. And Pun ripped through all these beats like no tomorrow and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like songs like You Ain't a Killer, so fucking ill. I mean, I love the original I'm Not a Player, the one with the OJ sample. I like the one with Joe. That one's still dope, but that one with the OJ sample, oh, killed that shit. You Came Up with Nori. Hell, you even had fucking Dead Prez making their breakthrough on the Rain and the Sun interlude. Like, come on, man. Like, this whole album is just a masterpiece in hip hop. Like, this is a hip hop classic, in my opinion. Definitely a hip hop classic. A lot of people want to discredit Big Pun, especially because you know he's Latino and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? But nah, nigga, Pun was really that dude. He was really that dude out there. So definitely. Number 8, we got Nirvana with their second album, Nevermind. Yes, second, because you know some people want to say, "Oh, this is their first album." I'm like, no, 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 no. We're not going to discredit Bleach. We're not going to discredit that one. Now, I'll be real with you. When I was growing up, I was never really into the whole grunge shit. I didn't really get into grunge maybe until when I was just listening to other music, like around high school and shit like that. And Nirvana was definitely one of those bands that people loved Nirvana and stuff like that. And I love Nirvana too. You know what I'm saying? Like the first album I heard from them, of course, was this album, and it took me a few listens to really get into it. But one thing that I do love about this album was just the perfect mixture between grittiness and polishedness. Like the production and the mixing definitely screamed early 90s. Definitely screamed fucking. It definitely had a very interesting new sound, but the lyrics and the tone, fire. Like it was just some of the most grittiest, darkest shit ever, and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this really was not the first grunge album, but at the same time, it actually was the breakthrough of it all. Because you know albums like Alice in Chains Facelift and stuff like that, that album is very underrated. I feel like that definitely needs more love and shit. But you know, songs like Smells Like Teen Spirit, you know what I'm saying, was just fucking influential and classic and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? Lithium. I love that. I love how they definitely took a lot of the influence from the Pixies, because you know the Pixies was known for doing, like, not just the Pixies but Sonic Youth. They were known for doing like the low voice quietness, but then the chorus and the bridge, they definitely scream and shout. The dynamics are more bright and loud and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? Come As You Are. I mean, again, that song right there is a perfect example of what I've been talking about. How, you know, they have like this fucking tone where Kurt is pretty much saying express yourself and who you are, but the beat itself is just so dark and grimy, like ding 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 ding, ding, like doors, some doors shit and everything like that too. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, with this album, it's just screamed to a whole generation. Like this album is still influential today and everything like that. People to this day still trying to make their own Nevermind and everything like that. I go back and forth which album I like more, In Utero or Nevermind. Like I feel like this is definitely their most influential album to date and everything like that too. And personally, I feel like Nevermind. I feel like Nevermind really set the template for rock music in that decade. So perfect album and everything. Oh, one more thing I love. In Bloom, another very dope song. You know, just making fun of the music industry, but yeah, classic. Moving on into possibly the only live album I have on this list is James Brown with Live at the Apollo. This was released in 1963, recorded in 1962. Now, when it came to this album, this is an album that I personally feel not only broke James Brown out more into the pop crowd, but I definitely feel like it was one of the first great soul albums. And yes, it's a live album. I get it, it's a live album, but hear me out on this. You gotta remember, back in late 50s to the early 60s, James Brown and the Famous Flames were really adding a more greediness to soul music from songs like Please Please Please, Try Me, Out of Sight. And one of the things that was so groundbreaking about James Brown was the fucking live performances, like his dancing, the way he just dropped into splits and shit. Like, not a lot of people were doing stuff like that, and even if they were, they'll sometimes come off as awkward and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy too, because when he was signed on King Records and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? They didn't want James Brown to actually release this album because they feel like an album with no new songs would not be profitable in the pop market. So James Brown pretty much financed this album on his own, and it ended up being one of the fastest selling soul albums of all time and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things I definitely loved about this album was just the grittiness and the grittiness of it all. Like his versions of like fucking I'll Go Crazy and Try Me, and then you get into the medley from Please 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 to I Found Someone and stuff like that, and then ending it off with Night Train, which if you ever seen any live performances of James Brown, Night Train was the one that he always brought down the show with. Prime example, the Tammy Show, 1964, when he did that Out of Sight to Prisoner of Love to Please Please Please, and it ended up the Night Train. I mean, you gotta really realize the importance of that performance and shit like that too, because for one, they were really trying to play James Brown, because originally he was supposed to end off that show, but they wanted the Rolling Stones to end off the show because, you know, the Stones, they were the hottest thing, you know, British Invasion, all that shit. And I love the Stones, don't get me wrong, and there's a 7 to 10 chance you might see one of the albums on this list. But when James Brown did that show, it was a wrap. It was a wrap. And I know you guys should know what performance I'm talking about and shit like that too. But Live at the Apollo really set the gold standard into actually what a live album should be. And like I said, this is really like the first great live album when it came to music and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, James Brown, Live at the Apollo, 1963. And the final album we have on this episode is Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt, 1996. Now, this was definitely another album that it should be not a surprise that this album is going to be on this list and everything like that too. Dare I say, this might be the first hip hop album. Whenever people talk mafioso rap, this might be the first hip hop album that comes to my mind and shit. I'm gonna be real with you. And again, going back to like Illmatic, like that Black Excellence, how he came out the gates already owning everything and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? Because you gotta remember, Jay has been the game since like the late '80s. You know, rapping with Jaz-O and whatnot and everything. And labels did not really want to sign him because they felt like he wasn't marketable and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? So he definitely hustled out there. Did guest appearances here and there from songs like Original Flavor, Can I Get Open, to Big Daddy Kane's Show and Prove, Big L's The Graveyard, and stuff like that too. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, had his own money, hooked up with Biggs and Dame Dash, did Rockefeller, dropped this album and stuff like that. And as influential as this album was, you gotta remember, this was actually his lowest selling album. I think to date it's actually his lowest selling album, which is crazy and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? But with this album and stuff like that, you know, he definitely laid the groundwork for the more like hustler, you know, making it in life and shit like that too. Like, I love songs like fucking Politics as Usual, you know what I'm saying, just talking about the drug language and shit, you know, feeling it. Fucking what's that one joint? Cashmere Thoughts, Can I Live, and everything like that too, you know what I'm saying? Like, every time I hear like a lot of the production on this album, it definitely had that very upscale, lavish sophistication to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you had cats like, you know, Ski on this album. You know what I'm saying? You know, you had Clark Kent, Primo, Jazz, Irv. You know what I'm saying? Like, definitely, you know, one of my favorite production lineups, you know, from any J album and shit like that too. You know what I'm saying? Like Dead Presidents 2. I mean, the first Dead Presidents alone is a classic, but when you have Dead Presidents 2 you added to it, you already know what you're gonna get yourself into and shit, you know what I'm saying? So yeah,